Thanks, Kent. Okay, so that was back in 2014, started CoughDrop. We released the initial version, and then things have just been, sort of full speed ahead since then. It's been a lot of fun. We've learned a lot and it's focused a lot on usability. One of our big areas of focus at CoughDrop is to say we want to empower the communicator. We want to help them to be successful. We want to help the team be successful around the communicator. Because those are sort of the two best indicators for success. When the individual communicator feels like they're able to control their world and participate and engage in their world, and then also when the team feels like they have the resources to feel like they're part of the solution. Those are the two biggest pieces, the people pieces, as usual. A little bit about CoughDrop. If you haven't used it or haven't used it a lot, it's an AAC app, so it does what you'd expect. It's for communication. You can hit buttons and build sentences, organize vocabulary. There's a bunch of built-in vocabularies that are available, or you can, throw something in that you've grabbed from somewhere else. We have teams here in the state of Utah that have created their own vocabularies that they use in their schools or for the people they work with, and then we have some that we've created with specialists and based on best practices as well. So whatever floats your boat. CoughDrop is cloud-based. That's one of the big things that's different about CoughDrop. So it uses the cloud. There are other AAC apps out there that will let you back up your vocabulary so you can save it if something happens. And this is a little different than that. You can think about it as a difference between, saving something to Dropbox versus Google Docs, where it's, collaborative and you can work on it together. And no matter what device you pull it up on, you've got access to it. So that's one of the nice things about CoughDrop. You can log in on multiple devices. We have people that have it on a tablet and a phone, and the parents have it on their phone, or the family members or support teams have it on their devices, and then everybody has access to the communicator's vocabulary so they can practice and learn and see where things are. But then there's also additional tools like a built-in reporting as well that they can get access to from wherever they are. So that's the basics of CoughDrop, which hopefully you're all familiar with. If you haven't ever tried it before, you can just go to coughdrop.com, sign up for a 2-month free trial, kick the tires and see what you think. The big news that's happened in the last couple months, CoughDrop has actually merged with a company called Forbes AAC. They're a hardware company back east. So the software and the hardware side are sort of coming together. We have, as part of this merge, we've decided to keep things pretty much the way they've always been. So CoughDrop still has a 2-month trial. Users can still sign up. You don't have to use Forbes' hardware. You can use it on other hardware, other vendors and things. But there is a new initiative as part of this merger that has a lot of potential called AAC Now. And the idea there is that traditionally what's happened with hardware vendors is they go for insurance funding because that's the way that can save everybody $1 or $2 or thousands. And so with AAC Now, the idea is that if you have somebody that's interested in getting funding for an AAC device, you fill out their paperwork and you get a free CoughDrop license. You can put it on whatever device you want. They've created a couple additional vocabularies that they want people to have access to, and you get all of that for free just by filling out a packet to apply for funding, and then you can start using it immediately. So you don't have to wait through the funding process to get started, to get the team up and running. You can do all of that from the get-go, and then once the device is funded, then you can put it on that dedicated device. It comes in the mail and everything's hunky-dory. So it's a new initiative that they're working on as part of this combined effort. But everything that you are familiar with CoughDrop is staying the same. This is just sort of some new opportunities that come as a result. So I'm happy to answer questions about that now or later if people are wondering about that. But I want to make sure you guys are aware of that. Okay, so these are most of the things that we've done in the last year or two that we've added to the CoughDrop app. It's a big list because we're always working on stuff. We're always trying to add things to make these communication tools more effective for the communicator and to be able to help the support team around them. And so some of these are driven by requests from our AAC users. We have a we have a decent adult AAC user community who communicates with us and lets us know things that they would like or things that would be helpful for them to be able to be more effective. We work with teams around the country. A lot of the teams that we work with are school-based, but we also have private practice teams, and we have some universities and some other research groups that also work with us to try to understand where things are going and the tools that we can build or implement that can help people be successful. So I'm going to show off a couple of these, and then I'm going to give some time if people have ones that they would like to see, or if they would like to see more of anything from any of these. That's how this is going to go. We're going to jump into demo time. Sorry, I saw somebody taking a picture. Did you get it? Yeah. Any questions so far? Yeah. Yeah, so the question was, what does Forbes make? And they do a iPad with a case and a key guard and a Bluetooth speaker, all of it just as a single bundle. And that's their sort of wheelhouse. They do Windows tablets too for eye tracking, but they're trying to get everything on the iPad, even the eye tracking side of stuff. So yeah, I think it's like 8 or 12 grand. So, nobody really buys it on their own because it's ouchy. But other questions? Okay. This is gonna be fun. I'm gonna get a sore neck. I'll log in real quick. So, okay, so the question was, how much does lifetime purchase cost? There's two ways to purchase CoughDrop. You can do it month to month at $6 a month for as long as you want, or you pay $200 for life. Two-factor authentication is one of the features we added in the last couple of years, which is great and super annoying at the same time. Okay, so this is the CoughDrop app. This is what it looks like when a non-communicator logs in. And again, you can log in on any device. So I'm doing this in a web browser, but it looks the same whether you do it in a browser, on an iPad, on an Android phone, whatever device you've got, you can log in. It's in the app store, so it's not like you have to go to the website every time. You can download the app from Google or from Apple and have it all automatically backed up and everything. But I'm going to show you the interface here because it's easiest for me to do just in the web browser instead of plugging in. I don't even know where I'd plug in an iPad. Okay, so like I said before, CoughDrop is cloud-based. Every user has an account, and then you can be connected to other accounts. So I'm a supervisor over multiple users. You can see the people that I work with over here. And for any of their accounts, I can access their boards. I can see their data usage and reports. I can set goals and track progress towards those goals. And then that communicator can be linked to multiple people. So I don't have to be the only one that's connected. I don't have to have their login or anything like that. If they move to another district or another program, they can kick me off and add the new people on, and all the security side of stuff is just taken care of. It's really clean, really slick, and makes things easy for everybody. But we're going to jump into a couple features here. First things first, I'm going to show a little bit about the reporting. I want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Okay, just in case anybody hasn't seen the reporting inside of CoughDrop, CoughDrop has a lot of built-in tools for tracking usage. This is my daughter's data, and she's given me permission to share it. But we track, if you turn on logging for an individual, there's lots of data. How much they use it, what words they're using most often. You can pull up a word cloud and see what are the words that they are using most commonly. You can look at their breakdown of parts of speech, core versus fringe. You can see which core words they are using most heavily. So you can see if there's, things. This is an ordered list based on some research to see these are some words that may be useful for them to have. You can see what time of day they're using the app most often. So if there are gaps in their day, for example, afternoons or maybe weekends or something, that all becomes very obvious. So those are some of the data tracking that's built into CoughDrop, and there's lots of great resources there. But what I want to show today, sorry, go ahead. In the data, I saw that, first it's not like words that yes. How does it like those models work? Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was how we track communication versus modeling, and the question is how do you be able to sort of tease those apart? And there's a couple different ways. First of all, since everybody has their own device, if you are modeling on a separate device, then it's really easy, right? So if I have my own tablet, then I can come in, I can say I'm going to model for this person, and then all of those hits will count as modeling hits. If I'm not doing that, if I'm actually going to speak mode, then there's a couple different things you can do. First of all, so like with my daughter, for example, she uses eye gaze to communicate. And so since she's an eye gaze user, then we can say any touches on the screen are going to be modeling hits because she isn't going to be able to use her motor control. But also you can go into modeling mode. If you click on the clear icon 3 times, you see that little finger that shows up. That now says that any button hits that I press are going to be tracked as modeling events. Exactly, and then it's all tracked that way. But if you're helping the communicator on their specific device, then you can toggle modeling mode on there. So you say, let me show you something. Do that real quick, and then you show them, and then it gets tracked correctly. So it's not going to be 100%, right? Somebody's going to forget, but it's probably about the best we're going to be able to do on the fly. Other questions? Okay, so couple things to show. We have inside of CoughDrop, we have a two-way messaging system that's built in. I don't know if you've used this. There's a texting system that's built into CoughDrop. So if you create a message,
like you
can also see some of these words were changing as I was typing words in. There's actually some automatic inflections that you can turn on inside of CoughDrop if you haven't seen those before. So I hit I like, and now all of my action words are going to assume ing because that's typically what you're going to do after you say I like. You're not going to say I like eat. You're going to say I like eating or I like to eat. So we have some rules to try to sort of help with some of those automatic inflections. That's off by default. So if you've never seen that before, that's why. But if you have a communicator that's ready for it, then that's great, and it can help with some of that grammatical structure. But if you create a sentence inside of CoughDrop, you can go ahead and share that, and then you can pick people that you have added as contacts, and this can send a message to them. Contacts can have an email address or a cell phone number, and then it will either email them or it will text them that number, that message. And when they get that, if they get it as a text, they can actually just reply right to that text message, and it'll send it back to the user. Let me see if I can demo that real quick. Yeah, I'll show you that real quick. Okay. So in preferences, this is kind of a small screen. Under selection settings, there's this automatic inflections checkbox. And if you check that, then it'll start automatically updating for tenses and things like that. The other thing you can do, though, if you want a little bit more control, you can do what's called long press for inflections. You've probably seen this in some other AAC systems as well. If you turn that on, then you can actually hold it down and get multiple tenses, and I can show you that. It's in preferences, yeah, under selection settings. There's a third option here called swipe for inflections. So I'll just show you those real quick before I do the other thing I was doing. So if I hold down on a button, then it's going to pull up all those tenses. And now what's interesting about the way we've done this is the tenses are always going to be in the same location. So ing is always going to be down, the infinitive is always going to be to the right. And once you sort of pick up a little bit of intuition around it, then you can turn on swiping for inflections. And then I can actually, sorry,
no,
cover that up, but I can swipe to
going,
get the inflection. Instead of having to long press, I just swipe to where it would be when I long press, and then it automatically inflects for me. So we have some adult autistic users that go nuts with this. And they will add not inflections like we're used to, but they'll add their own, shortcuts basically that they're swiping all over the place so that they can have a single board and have 8 times as many buttons on a single board because of that flexibility. So kind of cool and very handy, especially as communicators start to develop and grow to that level. Okay. So let me see if I can demo the texting. Don't need that. Okay. We'll see if the internet's going to cooperate. See if the internet's going to cooperate with me. So you can share with people like I just did there. And then it'll send either an email or a text message. And then when they get that, they can respond back either with a link in the email or they can respond directly to the text. And it comes back to the user. So you can see there's two unread messages right here. Sorry, she's an iGreens user, so dwelling all over the place. So I could go to alerts here and I could see what those messages were, and then I could respond back to them. So all of that communication happens directly within the app. So you can start to text people, which is actually a really great way to get some motivation and some engagement with individuals who, even though you may have a boring, speech therapy room as far as the communicator is concerned, but being able to connect with other people outside of that room can be a lot more engaging and motivating for the user. So again, the way you do that, you just go up here and you click share, and then you'll have the contacts. If you want, I can show you where those contacts are. If you go to the communicator's account, under profile, there's this list of contacts right here. So this is where all that contact information is. Don't steal my phone numbers. Don't make it weird. But that's how that communication side of things happens. So any questions about that? Yeah, you can upload pictures, or you can just use the little avatars, whatever works better. Yeah. Yeah. So so it comes back as text, but then there's a button that says read it out loud. So they can do either one. Yeah, it's really nice. And we use it a lot. So let me think. What was the next thing I wanted to talk about? So there's a lot of tools as communicators continue to grow and develop that we want to make sure they have access to, because communication is messy and kind of complicated, and we're always figuring it out as we go. So in CoughDrop, let's say for example, you have a communicator that's communicating, but maybe not necessarily in the right order. It's never happened, right? And that's fine. It's great that they got their point across and they communicated. And sometimes we say, that's where we're at, and that's great. And we're just gonna, we're gonna acknowledge that communication. And for some communicators, we may say, let's work on that. So inside of CoughDrop, you can actually set up repairs. So you can come in and you can see the message that's been crafted, and you can say, we're gonna take this. I'll show you again, and we're just gonna fix it real quick, so that we have a grammatically correct structure to the sentence. And the communicator can learn to do that on their own. You can actually insert things after the fact. So if they missed out on a word, you can go back in with your cursor and be able to add things to that same spot. So you just hit this little menu right here as part of the sentence box. And then I hit the repairs button is what I hit to be able to get at this. there's that text message. Just took a couple minutes. So you can, this is, I can, I can click and touch on these things, but also the communicator can use the navigation down here to be able to have large targets, to be able to navigate all of that and access it themselves, or, and these are switch and eye gaze compatible as well. So depending on what their access method is, they can get at those. But yeah, you can make changes to it. You can rearrange things and take care of business. Sure. So I hit repairs. Let's say I select this one right here. And then I say, I'm going to move this. I'm going to move it to the right, or I'm going to move it to the left. That make sense? Yes. So I've got my cursor right here. I can say, let's go ahead and insert something. You can see this is where it's going to insert it.
Put on.
And then when I'm done, I can say done inserting text. And then I'm back at the end, like is typically what you want. Anything else on that? There's also punctuation that's built into CoughDrop. So the period's the most common thing that we're going to have. So we have that nice and easy right here, but there's additional punctuation they can get to as well. So you can have their communication as they get to that point. It's really easy. It's all just available right here inside of this menu. So we have many users who are not at a point where we're worrying about periods and commas and things, right? But we want to make sure that it's easy to get to so that when we are at that level, we don't have to teach new skills. We can just, and we don't have to redo the skills we've already developed. We can just add to what we've already got. You can save phrases inside of CoughDrop. You can have, there's categories of phrases that you can have. You know, I've got my cheese category, I guess. But then there's also some journaling that stays private. So if they craft a message, then they can go ahead and save it to their journal, and then no one other than them has access to that. So that can be a nice way for them to be able to record some things personally that they then have that isn't shared with their support team and staff and everyone else. So that's the sentence menu up there at the top. We spent a lot of time on that. Oh yeah, one other thing. So if you have a device you're using for communication, like a tablet, there are times where you've got it on the table in front of you, and maybe you're just communicating through speech, but sometimes you're in a situation where you would just want people to be able to read the text as well. So that's another thing that's available. In this area is to be able to just flip the text, and then all of a sudden it's visible for the person that's sitting on the other side of the table. And you can configure what size of text that is. So you can say, when I flip it, go ahead and make the text larger or smaller, so it's different than what my typical, sentences are. Yeah, if you go to repeats, there's a couple options here. You can flip the text. The one that we use a lot in our family is the button, which makes just a very large button. So once they've crafted a sentence, the sentence box is a little hard for my daughter to activate consistently. And so you get a really large target here. And again, you can flip it. But then you can also speak whatever has been crafted as a sentence really easily. So if you hit this menu and go to repeats, then you just hit button. And then you get yourself a big button. Okay. We have added in the last little while some additional preferences and tools to be able to support lots of different communicators. So CoughDrop has had the ability to translate boards for a while. You can translate it into a different language. You can have support multiple languages at the same time. I'm not gonna dive into that, but we try to make it really easy to be able to say, I have these boards and I want to make it Spanish now, or I want to make it multilingual. So we have a Spanish-English user, and being able to switch back and forth between those two languages is something that, if there's interest, I can show a little bit more about it at the end. But that one is a little more involved in getting set up. So, but we've also added some skin tone options to CoughDrop. So any of the vocabulary sets, any of the images that have people in them, you can set it up for a specific skin tone for the user, set their preference there, or you can say, we want a variety of skin tones, we're just going to get a mix. Or you can say specifically, you know, we want more than one skin tone, but we want just the darker side, or we want just these specific skin tones. And then any of the icons that you use inside of CoughDrop, whether it's the open symbols or board maker symbols or symbol sticks, they will respect those skin tone settings that you've set there. So that's kind of nice to be able to help people feel a little bit more like it matches what they would like it to look like, or what they look like. Okay, another thing that I wanted to show is this tool called Focus Words. So inside of CoughDrop, as we were looking at AAC apps and the tools that are out there, one of the things I saw people do over and over again was they would say, "Here's our vocabulary, and we're going to have this other section inside of the app that's like." It's like a pared down version of our vocabulary for a specific activity or for a specific book even. Like, here's the brown bear, you know, version of our vocabulary. And so you navigate to it, and then you've got basically the same buttons, but only the ones that you would use when you're reading brown bear, what do you see, you know, or Cat in the Hat, or whatever the book or the context is. I mean, that's fine. The problem is that those can get out of sync with whatever changes you've made to the regular vocabulary. So if you make changes, then it's not going to match. And also you have to teach a specific pathway to get to those things, which is not ideal. So inside of CoughDrop, we said, what can we do to try to make that more approachable, or to have sort of a corollary that can help? Because that idea of focusing to specific words is valuable. To be able to help people be able to more easily engage in whatever we're talking about. We don't want to lose that, but maybe in a way that can actually be more generalized. So inside of CoughDrop, there's this tool called Focus Words. And Focus Words is a way for you to be able to set specific words or contexts or settings that are going to be highlighted for the individual. They can still hit buttons that aren't highlighted, but they'll see the words for the specific context will be easier to navigate to, easier to find, because they'll just be clearer, or they'll be brighter, basically. So same thing. I can come and I can go to shared reading, and we can do brown bear, for example. And then if I say set focus words, then CoughDrop is going to highlight the words and the pathways that have to do with the words in that book. So I can still hit anything that's not part of it, right?
And.
But then I have access to the words, easier access to the words that are part of that vocabulary. So we have a bunch of focus words that are built in. If you just click focus words, you can browse through what's there. So there's shared reading books, there's some core workshop books that are part of it. There's categories for a bunch of Tar Heel Reader, the popular Tar Heel Reader books. But you can also search, or you can create a custom focus set, and then that gets saved automatically. So I can say, for example, you know, we're gonna, you know, whatever it is. What do you mean? Sorry. You shouldn't. If you're not online, then it won't show up. But I can come look at it afterwards and see what's going on. It should be there. It should be there. If it's not, somebody in the audience said that they can't see all those. You can't, when you browse, there's nothing there, you said? Okay. Okay, we'll get to the bottom of that. She's lucky and you're not, huh? But you can save. So if you create some, you know, specific focus set, then you can save it. So we have AAC users that say, you know, when I'm in the workplace, these are the words that I want to make sure are easy for me to get to. And so they'll set up a work environment focus word set. And so then when they're there, those are highlighted. It helps them to be able to remember, oh, these are the words that I'm trying to use. These are the phrases that are most useful for me. But then I also have access to all of that vocabulary still. Now, when you saw, right now, the way I have it set up, these non-focused words are pretty dim. But that's a preference. You can say how much of a contrast you want between the focus words and the non-focus words. So the user sets that up on the individual level. So they may want it to have a pretty stark difference. There's even, I think, a level stronger than this where these get really dim. But you set it up for whatever works best for the individual. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Yeah. So the question was, can you share focus words with multiple users? Yeah, I'm trying to remember. So I feel, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, so sorry to restate. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so the question was around reusing focus words. So can I create it once and use it for all of my kiddos instead of having to program it for each one of them individually? And I have to double check, but I believe that was the way I built it because I wanted you to be able to make it and then say, all of the. So if they're connected to you as you're their supervisor, then I believe that they can have access to the ones that you've created. I'll have to double check. But if it's not there, then I need to go add it because that makes a lot of sense, right? That you would have that. You're like, yeah. Yeah, totally. So worst case scenario, if you can copy and paste. So you just copy the list of words because when you create a custom focus word set, let's say, so if you just create your own focus word set, it's just a text box. So you just you say, here, I'll show you. So you would just set a bunch of words there, and then when I say I'm going to save this for reuse, and then I set the focus words, and then it's going to highlight those words that I typed in. So if it's not there yet because I neglected to add that, you can always just copy and paste it for each person. And then once you click save, so this is my recents right here, but then once I've saved it, then you'll see it'll also show up right here ever after. So I'll have access to it. That user will have access to it whenever. That's what we're trying to do. Other questions about that? Okay. Okay, there's another feature that's built into CoughDrop. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to show it since I'm on this demo device, but it's called remote modeling. So the idea is, let me see. I might be able to do it with my laptop. One second. Okay, so the idea with remote modeling, you can see this little green dot just showed up right here for this demo user. That's because I just connected as that user on my laptop. So I'm logged in as a demo user here on my laptop. I'm in speak mode. And actually, I'm in a different user. The idea is that as you have a user on a device, you can be able to track the interactions that are happening on their device from another device. So I can see if, for example, you're doing a virtual call with somebody, I could be able to connect through the internet and be able to follow what's going on their device from my own device. Whether or not I'm in the same room as them, whether, wherever I'm at, I can still have that connection. And I can actually do a little bit of interaction as well. Okay. So I can either just follow what the communicator is doing, which is very passive, or I can actually request to connect and be able to help drive things on their screen. So now I'm following what that user is doing. So if they navigate to another screen, I can see what button they hit. Oops. And I can navigate to that screen. So I can see what's going on their specific device. I can actually also, if we're working on something and I want to say, here's the word that, we're trying to get you to say, I can, if I click on it, it will highlight for them on their device. They don't have to click it. They can still click somewhere else. We leave that autonomy at the user's hands, but it shows a highlight for them so they can say, oh, right, that's what I'm supposed to be working on. I can click it again if I want to and say, no, you definitely need to do it. But yeah, I'll show you again how I got into it. The other thing you can do as you're interacting with the individual, you can actually send them reactions as well. So you can say, you're doing really great. And they get a little notification on their device. So you say, for example, you're doing some Zoom therapy, right? You're talking to somebody and you want to be able to see what's going on their device. You want to be able to help support them. This is a great tool for that because I can track exactly what's happening on their device. I can highlight things if we're trying to get them to hit certain buttons or get to certain areas. I can send them feedback and they see it directly on their device. It doesn't have to be for a remote setting though. You can send hearty eyes and flowers and things just from sitting next to them in the same room, right? So you can do some modeling and some highlighting for them, even in the same room, without having to take their device away, without having to lean over in front of them and reach in front of them. And so it gives them a little bit more autonomy instead of you saying, now I'm going to take your device and show you what to do. You can help them see things on their device without ever having to take it away. So the way you do that again, you go to the individual. If you're connected to multiple people, or even just connected to one person, you'll have this communicators tab that shows up for all the communicators that you support. And then you just click this menu and hit remote modeling. And then it'll pull up those options for you. And then you can track their session. They have to be online. By default, they have to approve your request. So you can't just stalk people randomly. And even people you work with, by default, every time they have to approve you to follow them. So you can't just suddenly hop in while they're at home talking to their family, right? They can change it so that you're allowed to be able to go whenever you want, but that's not the default. Yeah, well, no, it'll show up, but it'll just kind of spin. It'll just sit there and say, we're waiting. If they have this little green dot next to their name, then it's a pretty good chance they're online. It's the user has to have either they have to be in a free trial, or they have to have an active subscription to CoughDrop running at the time in order for it to show up. But if it's not showing up for somebody that's like that, let me know and we can figure out what's going on for sure. Because I like this one a lot. It's really handy. Any questions about that? We try to spend a lot of time with CoughDrop. So there's the AAC, right? And there's making sure somebody has a good, solid vocabulary. And we built some good, robust vocabularies, and we can continue to work on that and make sure that people have the words and the access that they need. But there's a lot more that technology can do to help those communicators to be successful. And that's the areas that we try to look at CoughDrop and say, what can we do beyond just like, here's your basic access? What can we do for the team to support them? So that's where the data reporting and tracking and goal setting comes in. But also, what can we do to help the communicator be successful? And that's where things like focus words and remote modeling and some of these additional features come in. So we'll keep messing with stuff. We'll keep trying to improve things as we go. But there's already a lot in there that if you haven't played with, feel free to try it out. If you ever get into something and you're like, I forgot how to do that, or I don't know what I was supposed to do, just hit the little question mark up here. You can send us a message, or you can go to the YouTube channel, or we have a how-to guide that's says, how do I set up remote modeling, or how do I do focus words, or how do I translate boards to another language, whatever the how do I, those are all available right here. But if you're the kind of person that's like, I just need somebody to hold my hand, or you're like, I looked and I couldn't figure it out, feel free to shoot us a message. We respond usually the same day, but we tend to be pretty quick about getting back on things. So that's the stuff I wanted to make sure and show. Are there any questions about any of those features or something else that somebody would like to see or spend a little bit more time digging into in the time we have left? Yeah. Okay, so the question was, I want to see bilingual setting. So I'm going to make a copy. This is just for demo purposes. You don't have to do this part. Okay, so when you have a board or a board set in CoughDrop, if you want to translate it for another language, you can come here to this other actions section and say translate board. Okay, and then you pick, we'll just do Spanish. You pick what language you want to translate it to. You can say, I want to switch this to default language, or I just want it to be an option, either one. And you click Start Translation. CoughDrop will pull up suggestions for all of the words to be translated. You can either use those as is, or you can tweak them if you're like, that doesn't work. And you don't have to do it right here. You can do it after the fact as well. But these are just Google Translate and some user modified changes. But let's just go ahead and say, yep, I want these. So now this board is in English and Spanish, and I can switch back and forth between them. When I'm in speak mode, which is typically what you're going to be doing, I've got the board in whatever the default language is, whatever I started it in. If I hit this menu, I can say switch languages, and I can say, let's switch to Spanish, and now I've got it in Spanish instead of English.
More querer.
And it's saying it with Spanish. You can't hear it very well, but it is saying it with a Spanish accent. It's trying to find a Spanish voice on the device that it can use. So if you have one downloaded, if you have an English voice and a Spanish voice downloaded, it'll switch back and forth between them depending on what language you've got. You can also, when you switch languages, if you want to, you can say, you know what, we're going to have we're going to have the words that it shows in Spanish, but we're going to have it speak English. So if you have a situation where you've got a bilingual family and you're actually using this for some translation, then they can have the vocabulary in the language they're used to.
Vestir. Como.
Oops. What did I do?
Vestir.
Oh, I broke something. Well, anyway, in theory, what it should be doing is then speaking in the one language, but showing the labels in the other language. So if you're like me and it doesn't work the way you thought it would, just send us a note and I'll dig into it and see what's going on. But uh-huh. So even though it has the language, it didn't stick with it. Uh-huh. Back in English. Well, that's super annoying. Let's get that fixed. So that's the way that you have multiple languages on a board. You just hit switch languages and you can jump back and forth between them. It sounds like there's a quirk somewhere in there that we need to get ironed out. But that'll let you be able to support multiple languages for the individual. When you have multiple languages for an individual, when you go into preferences, if you come down here to voice settings, it'll use, if you have, so some devices will have lots of voices built in and some don't have actually any. So every once in a while you'll get a device like an Android tablet or something that won't do text to speech. You hit a button and it like doesn't make any noise. And sometimes you have to download a premium voice in order for that to actually work. But it'll try to use whatever voices are available for the device. So if there's a Spanish voice available, it'll use it. If not, it'll fall back to what you've got. But you can always come download these premium voices for the individual. I can't download them because it's only available inside of the apps, inside of the Windows app and the Android and iOS apps, and I'm on a browser. But you would be able to download those voices, and then they have access to them, and it could use those voices instead of whatever the system default was.
You voice. This sound.
So it's got lots of different.
¿Te gusta tu voz? Así es. Bueno,
That's theirs, bad, not mine. But I don't know what's going on. So that's the settings you would want to look at if you were working on translation to make sure that you had a good solid voice for both the different languages you were going to use. Other questions? Additionally, somebody asked before about CoughDrop reading back text messages. By default, it'll use whatever the communicator's voice is, which can be, depending on the user, can be a little frustrating. So there is a secondary voice option inside of CoughDrop, which you can say, you know what, when you're reading inbound messages or even when you're doing like scanning prompts and things, I want you to use this different voice instead, so that it doesn't sound like me unless I'm speaking. Right, and the other things it says can sound like, I don't know, George Bush or whoever I want it to sound like. But that way you can have a separate voice for things like reading prompts and for activating buttons and things, just depending on what the user's preference is. Other questions? So the question was, is this compatible with eye gaze hardware? And yeah, it is. So my daughter uses the Tobii, and she uses eye gaze for it. We have integrations with a couple different vendors, so the iTech devices should work just fine. The eye gaze Edge works. It does work with, we're working on integration with, it's called the Hiru or Hiru. It's an iPad-based eye tracker, and that should be out in the next month or so. If you have an iPad Pro, it actually, so it has some built-in head tracking. It actually has really lightweight eye tracking as well. It's not awesome, but every once in a while it works for somebody. So it's baked in, you can use it. You can try it and see if it'll work. And if not, then, don't. But No, there's a Windows app. Yeah. 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 Okay. So CoughDrop, if you install, yeah, sorry. So the question was, I have a remote user who doesn't have consistent internet access. Can they still use CoughDrop? So CoughDrop needs internet every once in a while. It needs to download all the boards and everything initially. So when you set up the account, you have to make sure it can download it to the app. So you install the app from the Apple Store, or Google, or Windows Store, and then you run what's called a sync. So you can just click the sync button and go ahead and synchronize, and then it'll download everything it needs in order to work offline. And then you can just do that forever if you want to. You can never connect to the internet again. Obviously, it won't get any updates or changes, and it won't push any data reports or anything like that. But it'll run just fine that way. So we recommend that about once a week-ish, you get in and run a sync. So that you can get any changes that have happened, so that the data can be pushed. If there's, so data tracking and reporting works correctly, but it doesn't have to have internet once it's got all that downloaded correctly. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. So if you've got really shoddy internet because there's brick walls and everything in there, right? In some of these schools, you can try that. Try turning off the Wi-Fi and see if that works better. Because sometimes what happens is it's trying really hard to get internet, right? And it just kind of bogs things down. So that's worth a shot and see if that can address that issue. We've done a lot to try to make the performance faster. So if it's something that's happened in the past, you may want to try again, because we've done a lot to try to optimize things and make them zippy so that it doesn't cause those issues anymore, hopefully. Yeah, exactly. So the question was newer iPads should work better, and yeah, that's true. We tend to work with more older iPads than other vendors, but again, you get what you get what you get. They're going to start to slow down over time. So, other questions? I said before, but in case you missed it, CoughDrop is $6 a month or $200 for one-time purchase. We always do a sale in April and October where it's $100 instead of $200. So first week of April for Autism World Autism Month, we'll have a sale going on, and then for AAC awareness in October, we do one as well. So that's a great time to get it. But you can, and again, you can always do 2 months for free. Every user gets 2 months to kick the tires and play with it. And it should have all the features and functionality in that trial, so you can see what it's really like. You're good. Yes, there is. So there's an annual option that you can do. I think it's $1,000 a year for up to 100 users. So it's a better deal at the district level, and that actually comes with a bunch of additional organizational tools that I haven't showed. So that you can track at your organization. You can organize people into classrooms and be able to see data level at the classroom for what's going on. You can be able to, it allows you to set up all of your AAC users, not just your CoughDrop users. You can add people that are using Protocol or other systems and be able to have everybody in one place, and to be able to set goals and set training. You could push out links to people and say, this is our, continuing education resource for the month. Everybody needs to go take this class. There's lots of stuff that's built in at the organization level if you do that. If you're interested, let me know, and we can definitely help set that up for you. Thanks for, I forgot about that, so that's great. Yeah. Yeah, it can be a little tricky sometimes when you're moving people around. We want to make it seamless. So yeah, let's definitely figure out how to do that. It might be 50. I can't remember because we just had to tweak it recently. But yeah, it's the idea is that an annual license works better for us because then we have the recurring revenue, and so we want to make sure that works better for you guys as well. And so we have, we offer a bunch more licenses than you could get just from paying one-offs. So it benefits everybody, and it just honestly, that's the way most software is nowadays anyway. You buy a site license and then you have access to it for everybody that needs it. So we want to start moving that direction. Some people hate it, but I think we're going to get there. So yeah. Yeah, so the question was, if you have somebody that's part of your organization and they leave, so they're no longer part of your system, is there a way to transfer their profile out so they don't lose what they've done? And that happens automatically. So you just remove them from your organization. There's a little X and you say they're not part of our organization anymore. And it doesn't delete anything. In fact, I think it gives them a month of a free trial again. So it sort of gives them a grace period so that they can either find another funding source, they can reach out to us because we have some funding options. You can actually also, if you choose to, you can gift them one of your licenses, so you can send them off with a license. So there's lots of options to try to support them. But everything they've created, as far as we're concerned, it was never yours to begin with. It was always theirs. So they get to keep it and they can decide what to do with it. It's the same login yeah. That's right. If you're doing the yearly model, then it would be just for a year. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's true. Yep. So you could kick them off, they could disconnect and never get on the internet again and use it indefinitely. So there's sort of two models with CoughDrop, right? Having an active account gives you some of the stuff like remote modeling and data tracking and stuff. But once you've sort of gotten past this threshold that we have set inside of the app, we don't care if you turn it off forever, right? Essentially, we made the money off of you that we needed to in order to justify it from a business perspective, and then you can go nuts. And you don't have to pay us anything else unless you need those additional tools and features. So does that make sense? Any other questions? Well, I appreciate everybody's time. If you have more questions, you want to come up afterwards, I'm happy to talk through anything. And hopefully you've had a good conference so far and have a good St. Patrick's Day.